Hey, we're back. This is not for beginners, okay? This is probably going to be the last one for the day because I got to go places, okay? Patty Broussard will understand this because she is an expert, if you will, programmer. She understands information sciences. She understands data input, data output, okay? So I want to share something with everybody on the planet, and this deals with experience. As I put a post up to Dr. Robert David Steele, because he works in intelligence, which is what? Data collection. Intelligence. We all have intelligence, right? We all have logic, right? And we have creativity, right? And we have imagination, right? Do we all agree with that? If we don't agree with that, that's an argument. In computer language, that's called an argument. What is the function of a computer program? Experience. What is the function of data? Experience the data. So now we get into a virus. A virus is just a made-up word. Who came up with virus with a V? Okay, so when you realize that the English language was butchered from the beginning, then you begin to understand, for example, why they use that language. It's programmed into memory. When you believe that a virus is something that you're going to experience, then you are experiencing the data that is based on the consciousness that produced it. So when you think of 3-pole, 48 chromosomes, base 9, language, that's computer language. Computational, which is numerical, the way the numbers work, which represent what you experience because you're experiencing the numbers which represent the data. So when Dr. Robert O. Young, based on all his research, bless the man's heart because he was blackballed, okay, when he said that no virus has ever been isolated or purified. Now in my playbook, purified means purified by fire, because it burns so hot. Hot or light. Burns hot or fire. That's purified. Which means it doesn't exist anymore. The data doesn't exist anymore. So when we talk about somebody that created something using their state of consciousness that is going to create what Dr. Robert O. Young says is a symptom, you are experiencing the data that represents the information that was put into the experience. You're experiencing the data that they call a virus. You're experiencing a symptom. When I have pain, that's a symptom. That's represented by data. Why isn't the data repairing itself? Because they took that out. When Gaia created this avatar, for example, and I end up getting hurt, the data is now missing. Restore the data. All of the data is represented in the 3rd pole, otherwise known as the engineering department. That means that all the data that is represented by the numerical language that is used in that data was used to create all of the data that is in the chromosomes. So the 3rd pole, which is the factory human blueprint of a Homo sapien sapien, means the same thing when you have a bootloader in a laptop running an operating system, whether it's Windows or whether it's, Apple? Okay, what is the first thing happens when you bootload something? It's error checking. What is it error checking? It's self. Its state of consciousness, what it's aware of, which is the program that it's running, okay, is error checking the data to make sure that all of the data is linked to the libraries of all the data. So that the information that's being processed, which represents all the data, okay, is going to be operating in a system that allows for you to use it in the way in which it was intended for the function it's being used for by the programmer. Now, for me, that's pretty simple. It's no different, for example, when I think about my father, who was showing me how he was writing scripts, narratives. Okay? He was writing a program in order for a machine to do something that otherwise a human used to do. So we can easily replace humans with robots. We can easily replace humans with cyborgs. We can easily replace humans with androids. What do? They perform a function. The same way that any computer performs a function. So when David Icke, for example, talks about a computer terminal, it's like being a node in the network, a receiving node with an antenna and a transmitter. So when you look at a cell, what is a cell? You got a cell phone, right? A cell is a cellular communicator. In biology, Bruce Lipton will say it's got a receptor, which is an antenna, and it's got an effector. The effect. You're translating the signal that the antenna is picking up from its environment. That's the advantage of an avatar. That's the advantage of being analog. Okay? We're not digital soulless clones. When you operate on your soul, which is what I call a magnetic compass bearing, okay, then you want to make sure, at least in my mind, that I'm running the hottest fire, which is the hottest light, so I burn off anything that's trying to contaminate, okay, the physical body, which represents all the data. This is when we get into GMO, genetically modifying. That means they're wanting to change the data. So when you're merging with, essentially, technology written by somebody else, then you're running their stuff rather than your own. So I thought, put that in the hopper for the day. Okay? I don't want to go too deep into all this kind of stuff, so it's like crumbs. Remember QAnon? Feeding the crumbs. Let me finish with this because this just came to me. I was thinking about, for example, why, having a hometown meeting, why President Trump just doesn't come right out and say, listen, folks, this is what the truth is. You want to know what the truth is? I don't really think you want to know what the truth is. Okay? If we just showed you everything what we got on video, I'll just have the girl on the planet do it. Put a big-ass holographic projection up, screen everybody on the planet. This is everything that's going on down below ground. This is what we're finding down there. Everything that underlies the causality of why everybody experiences what they experience. It is all data-driven. Experiencing the data, experiencing the information, experiencing the energy, the communication. So I was remembering, I thought I'd leave you with this because this is how it works. You're in a classroom, okay? So the girl on the planet is the teacher, and I've covered this over and over and over and over and over and over again, okay? What you choose to believe is always going to be up to you because that's your journey, not my journey, your journey, okay? So, for example, I ran into a guy in a place called Lapahoy Point, which is over on the north side, otherwise known as the Hamakua Coast. Beautiful place to hang out, particularly in the springtime if you want to see the humpback whales giving birth to their young, to their newborns. And if you go over onto the more west side of that point, which is where you can see the sun go down over Maui, which is unbelievable because at this particular beach point, you can see the sun come up and see the sun go down and not move 1 inch. Imagine that. Beautiful place to hang out. It's a timeless place. So anyway, the energies are very good there. But I ran into a guy there who was with, I believe it was with his daughter and her boyfriend. He was probably in his 50s. I believe his daughter was probably in her 20s, 26, 27, somewhere around there. And we just got into just a spontaneous conversation, right? And so naturally, I live in an infinite universe. So when I began describing how I perceive the universe that I live in, okay, if you will, and he was describing the one that he lives in, and I realized that this is where we get into the difference of perception vibration, which is how big is your telescope, right? 360 degrees, how big is it? Is it panorama? How much are you aware of, right? So how much you're aware of can be quantified through data. So we can do what's called a quantitative and qualitative assessment of all the data that we're experiencing that is represented by that experience. Okay? So I realized that he was operating on a limited amount of data, which is lack of light, or if you will, lack of knowledge, or if you will, lack of data. Okay, so what is the data that he's running on in his program? Well, I realize it's not the same data that I run on in mine, because I do have memory and I'm running. So I delete bits and bytes of data from the moment I arrived in here. Okay? I don't want that data in there. That's not what I am. That's not the data that I use to experience who I am, and that's not the kind of data that I would use in order to create and build a network that goes on forever in the entire cosmos. Because data represents an experience. So if you're experiencing nothing but the hottest light with the biggest vortex in your heart, everywhere that you go, that goes on forever, then you know you represent the inception. You run on the hottest fire. Because for me, I've got that much fire to give to a girl. Let's go explore the universe together, living in no fear. Because anything lower than what we are gets burned up. Burning up the data. So anyway, this particular gentleman, we got in this conversation, and when I began to explain to him how many planets, how many solar systems, how many galaxies, what a supercluster is, how big it is, how vast, he preferred to live in a smaller universe. Okay? So I said to him, I said, that's perfectly fine. I hope that you're enjoying yourself in a state of love and joy. Okay? That's your free will to do that. But here's the kicker in all this. What if this gentleman knew in the beginning that his first teacher in, say, kindergarten was showing him how light works, how big and vast the universe actually is, okay? Which means he's being told the truth right out of the gate. He begins to realize how powerful love is in his own heart, how powerful that wheel of light is, as David Icke would say. That's a powerful vortex. Imagine you can go on forever and experience everything that is out there to experience in living spirit. Would you choose to want to do that? Or do you want to run on limited experiences, which is limited data, which means a smaller universe? That's your free will. So then you get into energy service providers. Because I remember when Patty said one time, they're not ascending. They're not growing their light spirit body. How are they ever going to be energy service providers if they're not growing in what they are in light that they're aware of? In order to be aware of more stuff, more functions, more data, more of what the universe is that we're giving love to, which is giving light to experience. Particularly when we become aware of that we're losing light, we're losing a part of what we are, which is what love is. We got to restore it. So we need to be more of what that is. So the more of what that is by learning how big that universe is and attracting more light. He wasn't interested in attracting more light to be aware of a bigger universe. That's not ascending, is it? So I realized that even though that's his free will to do that, what if he had available to him when he was young information in which he could now perceive a much bigger universe and how that works? He was denied that information. He was denied that data. And when you're denied that data, then the purpose and the function of this classroom was not supporting the reason that it is here for him to be able to experience what is possible through her. So they got to disconnect everybody from her, the teacher in the classroom, so that they run on limited data. They have different experiences. that is based on the data they experience. Now you begin to realize the underlying causality of why we all experience such lower density data, which represents the consciousness that is experiencing it. We're experiencing lower frequency data. Welcome to the Universe 101. Have a great day.